Welcome. On today's show, we are speaking with Mike Benavee, aka the Soul Guide, and he has a really interesting, unique, and profound experience he's going to share with us today that he at one time referred to as a near-death experience, but now understands it as a walk-in, and we'll get into exactly what that is a little bit later. But first, welcome, Mike.
Hey, thank you for having me. This is an absolute honor. Thank you, Christine. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. So I'm pretty much just going to turn it over to you and have you start from wherever you feel is relevant, and then we'll kind of connect again at the end with some questions.
Okay, thank you. So, as you mentioned, I had what I thought for the longest time, for nearly 7 years, a normal near-death experience. When I said normal, meaning the mainstream scenario and story and testimony of people who nearly cross over somehow after either an accident or a medical emergency or any of the other ways that people can lose their physical consciousness. I purposely say not losing their lives because we start living, we never stop living aside from this world. So our soul is everlasting, and we'll get to that later. So how do I begin? Every time I tell this story, I get goosebumps all over again. I connect to my soul. I get into this trance, and I tell it as if it was yesterday. So going back to my childhood, I must say that I've always been, in a way, a gifted child. I had psychic abilities, but at the time they terrified me. I had very, very weird, like indigo child abilities. Like I saw things and sensed them before they happened. I was able to tell colors and be able to pick very, very small bits of information and make something huge out of them, which even as a little boy. And in the beginning, my parents thought I was just gifted and I need to go to a school for the gifted children. But all throughout my childhood, and even more so throughout my teens and adulthood, of course, I was a rebel. I resisted it. I fell in love with the ego. I accepted and welcomed the ego into my life to cast a shadow for who I really was, for my soul purpose, because we all have an individual special soul purpose, which is unique for us. Kind of like, I tell people the secrets of creation. A lot of them is if you look at our fingerprints, the humanity as a whole, not single one of us have the same fingerprints. And I don't know how many billions of people nowadays living in the world. It keeps on rising, but it's a unique pattern that only we have. And especially when we talk about the soul and our soul's journey from the beginning, the very beginning, the pre-birth, which is, when a baby is born, I never say somebody is born, but somebody is reborn again. It's a 360 cycle that it's constantly moving in harmony. Or some of us are getting on this Ferris wheel, quote unquote, for the first time, and some of us have been here, and that's our second, third, fourth, 10th, 100th ride. And the more we've been here, the more we are aware. And by that, we help people. But what happened to me is that when the ego took over, all I wanted is to be out there. I wanted people to love me. I wanted materialistic things. I wanted money. I wanted earthly pleasures. Let's put it that way. Anything that can feed that physical body, that egoistic body, that vessel that's supposed to limit our soul. I mean, this is the whole point of living in this world is you have the now, you have this physical temptations, you have those physical needs, and you can just take them. And the soul is kind of suppressed inside and only comes up when there's special moments when we get butterflies and goosebumps. But it shouldn't be like that. It should be completely the opposite. And I didn't know that, and I just wanted to get the best job. Back, I lived in Southern Illinois in the Midwest, and there wasn't much to do back then as far as job opportunities. So I went ahead and, aside from owning a martial arts studio for almost 2 decades, I decided to join the Illinois Department of Corrections to be a prison guard, a correctional officer, if you would, in a maximum security prison. Now, for those of you viewers who don't know, maximum security prison hosts some of the most notorious of criminals in the state of Illinois. I mean, so just to imagine the atmosphere inside those walls that the general public is not really aware of, and what it does to the soul and the violence and the agony and all that. And I was just working it, soaking it in, and never really letting it affect me because, like I said, all I thought about was the money, the next date I'm going to have, next car I'm going to buy, and I just wanted to live the physical consciousness. And all of that changed when we were very short staffed in that prison, so they worked us 14-hour shifts, and I used to work the night shift. And I used to commute to work, and it was an hour each way, like a road in the middle of nowhere, just a bunch of cornfields on each side. So imagine how boring it can get driving back and forth from work to my house. And this Tuesday morning, and I remember it like it was yesterday. It was just a day off that I knew I'm not going to be mandated for overtime. So I was excited to just go home, and it was just another morning. And I didn't even feel that tired that morning. But I get in my van. I had that soccer mom van back then because I have children and they were little at the time. So I needed to have that vehicle. So I'm getting into that van, driving home. Um, the time was 7:33 exactly. That's what the police report said. But around 7:10, 7:20, in that road called Route 3, and the speed limit was 70 miles per hour. And I'm driving the speed limit, and there's nobody around. Just another day, sun's on my face, I'm happy to be home, right? All of a sudden, I feel, I don't know if I closed my eyes, if I dozed off, if something distracted me. I'm not really sure what happened. But the moment I closed my eyes, I instantly opened them, and then my wheel locked completely. My brakes locked. It was like no hydraulic fluid in them. They were stuck. I didn't know what to do. I remember that any other day I would probably panic and try to operate that situation like immediately, but for some reason I was kind of, I kept cool. And here I am driving 70 miles per hour, and I can't control the vehicle. And all of a sudden the vehicle starts spinning. It was hydroplaning really, really fast. And I'm looking at the speed gauge, and I remember that instead of the speed going down because my foot is off the gas pedal, the speed's going up. So from 70 went to 75, 80, and I'm like, I told myself, I'm not getting out of this alive. I mean, it's something, I mean, this is the end. Like I kind of came to realizing that. And then all of a sudden, I see on the opposite lane a car approaching. And as they came closer, I could see clearly that there was a woman in the car and two children in the back. And I knew that usually that was the time when kids were dropped off at school by their parents. And I remember telling myself, as I'm spinning, no matter what happens, no matter if it's my fault, no matter if I fell asleep, no matter if I'm not coming out of this, I'm not hurting another soul, no matter what. So with everything I had, I swerved as hard as I could to the right. And here it was. I'm seeing this concrete divider in front of me, and I'm heading towards it 80 miles per hour. And I remember that I couldn't do anything. I just froze. But at the same time, I wasn't even bracing. As I was approaching, time slowed down in a significant way, like almost complete slow motion. And I find myself smiling as I'm staring at that wall, not bracing. And like I said, I was a martial arts instructor, so I know how to dodge and block and teach those instincts back then. And I just smiled. And I don't know if back then I smiled because I found it funny that this is how I go in my uniform without saying goodbye to my kids, just another day, day off. I'm coming back from work. Or I smiled because of something else. And later on I realized it was something else. But I'm heading towards that wall, and then I hear a blast. And that was the loudest explosion I've ever heard in those previous life. I mean, it was something that you couldn't even compare to anything in this world. And out of that explosion, I can see like a little white piece of, there was a white sheet of cloth, and it was like flying in the wind, and it was against the airbag just starting to deploy. And I'm saying it's all slow motion, so I'm seeing a little bit, and that was over. I opened my eyes, and I'm upside down, sorry, in the middle of the field. I can clearly see that the car is crushed, like it's crushing me. It formed, it was, I don't know if you happen to see pictures of the accident. So that was when they flipped it over, but the car, and I took a few videos afterwards, the driver's side where I was sitting was impacted the most. And the sheet metal of the car formed some sort of like forks, like two forks on each side, and they were crossing, and they were just like, I'm looking, and they were like inside of me, but they're not. Like anyways, I'm just crushed completely inside of this car. However, it was the best feeling I've ever felt my entire life. And I'll go to details because it's important. First of all, I must say that I remember everything that happened prior to that. I even remember clocking out, leaving the prison, getting into my car. I remember the hydroplane. I remember everything. So it wasn't like I was hallucinating or I was knocked out or I was just, dreaming things that never happened. I remember that I knew exactly where I was and why I was there. However, what I couldn't realize is how can somebody pull the plug on all the senses that we have in this world aside from my vision? First of all, the sound was completely sucked out of this universe like it never existed. It wasn't even needed at that time. I feel like there was no sound. You know how sometimes people buy and wear these noise cancellation headphones. Have you ever tried those before? The real good ones. So multiply by a trillion, and there was completely no sound. It was the most relaxing thing in the world. The feeling of bliss. It was no pain. I mean, I'm in this ironic situation where I'm supposed to be screaming out of pain. I'm supposed to be severely hurt, and I'm feeling the best I've ever felt my entire life. There was no smell, there was no fear, there wasn't even a thought in my brain. We always think, even when we are the most relaxed, we still think. I can go and be an isolated island for a vacation and be the only person on the beach and just relax, but I was still thinking. I'll be thinking about how much fun I'm having or whatnot, or how relaxed I am. So we're constantly thinking as human beings. And I didn't have it. I didn't have it at all. It was complete bliss. I felt warmth. I felt protected. I felt invisible. I felt infinite. I felt like you can expand me from that place to the other side of the earth easily, and I consume everything, and everything consumes me. But yet I was in this world. I wasn't outside my body as far as like me flying over my body and seeing what's going on, like most near death experience. I didn't see a tunnel. It was all light. It was all a dream state feeling. It was a really the most lucid dream I've ever had, because I knew it wasn't a dream. I knew where I was. I know what happened, and I know why I'm here. But I'm like, it can't be that this is. I mean, it can't be that this is death. Why am I still stuck here inside the car? So as I'm looking outside the window, and everything is like grayish, like when you dream about like the real world, like we never see the real world like in 3D. The dream has its own layer to it, I guess. I'm looking outside the window, and there she was, a lady in her mid 60s, dressed all in black, but there was like clothes from the 1800s, like the farmer ladies from like 1800s, with a headscarf, and she had a scar on her right cheek, like a burn scar. And all she did was pacing outside, back and forth, outside of my van on the field, just going back and forth, back and forth. And I didn't even know what to think. I couldn't speak. I couldn't touch anything. It was just like a dream state. So all I remember doing was waving with my arms for help, for her to try to talk to me, to ask how I'm doing, to get me out. And all she did was nodding her head. No, she didn't say a word. She just said no and just kept walking back and forth, back and forth. And this is the first time when I felt like something is changing in me, because the old me would have been really really upset with that lady for not wanting to help me. I would probably yell some things, say some things. I know that I would have reacted differently than how I reacted, and I remember that I smiled, that I said, hey, maybe, don't judge her. Maybe she's worried that she's going to do more harm than good. Maybe she's worried that the car's going to set on fire. Who knows? Just don't judge her. She has her reason. Just don't judge. Don't judge. Like something was talking to me. And that was the first time that I really had a battle between my ego, my old ego, and my new soul of like, what's going on? What are you trying to do? Who are you? What is that free love? And all I remember was that I decided to close my eyes so I can gather some more strength. I can try to get out of the car because I was buried in the mud. Like the car was completely buried. But to me, everything was spiritual. I was spiritually locked there. Like it wasn't like I couldn't get out as like as a soul, but I was supposed to just stay there. And I closed my eyes, and the second I closed them, they reopened, and everything came back, just like you hit play on a paused movie. The sounds, the smell, the smoke, the radio was still even on in the car, and I can feel the pressure of the car just pressure on me on my knee. And I look outside the window and I see hundreds of people up in the road, down in the field, fire trucks, police cars, ambulances. Like it was chaos. And me, I'm still relaxed. I'm still happy. It's like I was introduced to something that I'm like still overwhelmed about. And I'm telling everybody, I'm okay. I'm okay. And the paramedic just tackled the car, ran. I've never seen a person run that fast to get to somebody. And he came to me and he gave me IV through the window. And I keep telling him that I'm okay. And he was like, no, you're not okay. You're in shock. You probably have internal bleeding. I don't want you to move. You're in bad shape. You're in bad shape. And at one point, I just decided to stop saying I'm okay and just go along with that because I didn't want to argue with him. And I told him, sir, but why are you giving me IV through the window? Just please let me out. And he said, well, we can't. We have to get the firefighters to use the jaws of life. And for those of your viewers who don't know what a jaws of lives are, is hydraulic devices that the firefighters use to tear the car open and extract passengers who are trapped in there. And I was like, okay. So I closed my eyes again, and I hear everybody yelling, everybody's knocking, and the saws and the machinery, everything is operating in chaos, and there's peace inside of me. And they're done. They got me out. They gave me a morphine shot to my stomach. They cut my uniform. I was still uniform. They got rid of my badge, everything that was on me, and they rushed me to the hospital. While I'm just saying that I'm okay. They rushed me to the hospital in this ambulance and the siren. That was my first time ever being rushed to the hospital like that inside of a ambulance. And there was a sheriff deputy lady inside and the paramedic, and they're rushing to the trauma room. And I asked the lady, I said, officer, is that okay if I ask you questions? And I remember her first response was, she wasn't rude, but she goes, well, you must rest right now. We'll talk later. You're in bad shape. We need to check you out. Then we'll talk. And I said, well, I insist. I really want to ask a question. So she was like, go ahead. And then I asked, isn't it against the law for a citizen not to help another citizen in distress? And she was like, what are you talking about? We came as soon as we heard about it and we helped you. And it's like, oh, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about that lady who was there. She was walking and I'm asking her for help. She didn't call you. She didn't bother to check on me any further. I mean, and they're like, what lady? We were the first in the scene. There was absolutely nobody there but us first. And I know that to myself back then, I'm like, if I tell them what I saw and what happened to me and what I felt, they're probably going to think I have brain damage or something. They're going to give me medications. They're going to, I don't know what. So I was like, I kept quiet. I smiled and I kept quiet. And this is the first miracle. Now, the second miracle that happened is that I get to the hospital And I wish nobody to ever experience a trauma room in their lives, but in a trauma room, the patients are treated almost like VIP, meaning they're bringing all the imaging equipment to you. You don't have to go between the department. They just bring everything to you, and they scanned me from head to toe and took my blood, millions of arms reaching out to check me out, right? And after like 40 minutes or something like that, I'm laying in bed, and by then a couple of good friends came over to check on me and to pick me up and to see what's going on. And the doctor, the professor, came into the room and he told me, "Listen, I've been here for so many years, and I've never seen anything like that." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, I'm going to have to let you go. You don't even have a bruise. You don't even have an inflammation anywhere. You didn't even break a fingernail. Nothing. It's just like you got out of the shower." And 99.9 of people don't survive accidents like that. And if they do, they become disabled forever, but not in your case. And I'm sending you home. And I was shocked that I was able to experience what I did, and came back, and what happened after was nothing but visions and dreams and spiritual encounters and angels, things that I never studied before, things that I never believed. Though I told you as a kid I had a gift, but I never believed in this. I was so skeptical. If you couldn't show it to me or prove it to me, not only I wouldn't believe you back then, I would probably make fun of you. I would mock you. I was that egoistic. I was that much of a narcissist. I was everything that is the opposite from who I am today. But all of a sudden, I'm starting to having these encounters and psychic abilities, and I don't understand how. I went crazy because of that. I had 7 years of depression, anxiety, troubles, divorces, another divorce. Like I felt like I don't understand what's going on. And only after realizing that everything was just a spiritual transformation, when the walking soul completely made the exchange, took over and living the actual purpose. I lost a lot of friends because of that. A lot of other people from my past don't know what happened. Like my family, I mean, I love them, I remember them, but they even realize that it's not like the family connection used to be. It's almost like it's a brand new person. However, it's from the same root of the same soul. That's what a walking soul is, and we'll talk about it. Came back to complete what the previous soul has failed fulfilling. And that's in a nutshell the story.
It's such an incredible story. I do have some questions. At what point, I know you said there was about 7 years after this experience until you started to have a new understanding of what it was that happened. And it sounds like you were kind of going through a really hard time, perhaps a dark night of the soul. What was that shift? When and where, how did that happen? Where you went from thinking that was a near-death experience to this is a walk-in? What did that look like?
Oh, the walking part was the newest thing because I really didn't know about the term. I know that this is a new age term, but there's many in many cultures and religion this term exists, just in a different terminology. But with me, see, those 7 years were a mashup of spiritual enlightenment, lots of heavy personal issues, lots of conflict, lots of enlightenment moment. It was all a mix. Like it's almost like my soul was shaken and thrown from one side of the earth to the other. And all of these troubles at one point, like I used to always like, why do I deserve it? They keep coming. When it rains, it pours. Like to me, when it rains, it pours became the thing that I used to recite maybe the most, 7 years ago, almost 8 years ago, the most. And then I came to realization when I made full circle and met my now wife and twin flame, that the puzzle pieces started to come together. It's like almost like I needed to, and this is not mentioned in any of the other podcasts, and not even the book. Well, the book, yes, but that my twin flame was the missing puzzle piece to really align everything together. I had a very, very major back surgery just 9 months ago. And during this time, it was the ultimate of physical challenges because then I stopped working for months and till this day, like my body's not the same, but I needed a cane or two of them to walk for months and months and months. I couldn't walk normally. I still cannot do things that I used to. And I used to be this macho martial arts guy, athletic. So you almost like have to give up a lot of the physical in order to enrich the spiritual, to let the spiritual light completely fill that vessel called body. So when I met her, I remember that I started having some amazing spiritual miracles happening to both of our lives, like messages from her mom who passed away just recently in forms of sequences of numbers that not only they came to both of us, it was not even just me noticing that and having to tell, it just came to both of us in ways that we ended up saying, you know what, we started documenting it because
Mm-hmm.
then otherwise people won't believe us. And we decided to document all these numbers 27 and 7 and 17, 27, 7, 17, and things that happened to us as a collective, just me and her. Like it's almost like we now facing the world as like one unit. And in that time when I couldn't work, I decided that I'm going to help people, and it started with medium psychic readings to people, and then it switched immediately to soul guiding, which is being psychic of those who are the living. And then I realized that all the people who write me are part of my soul journey. They're like people who I'm supposed to meet, and they're supposed to meet me as well. They're drawn to my story. So all the synchronicities worked out perfectly. And then I'm like, what's going on with me? Like I didn't have the normal, typical quote unquote average near death experience,
Mm-hmm.
but I had a transformation and now I'm a complete different person. However, I do remember my previous life, my childhood. I'm now the best spiritual version of myself. I give spiritual reasoning. Like I limited my life to the very minimal materialistic level in order to just exist. Outside of existing, I give spiritual reasoning and I operate spiritually with everything that happens in my life. And that's true freedom. That's living heaven on earth. But then I start Googling what's going on with me. And then I'm like, I read somewhere about somebody who went through the same thing. And they were like, well, I think I'm a walking soul. And I'm like, what is this? And I'm reading and I'm like, well, I showed my wife. I was like, that's exactly what's going on with me. So I read other cultures and how they see that, and they all have the same phenomena, like of a soul that had a soul contract. It's not really a strange soul or a different, complete different soul. No, it's almost like a soul, a fragment of your soul from a different incarnation, from a
Okay.
different dimension, because we are connected. See, what we have in this body that limits us to the body, that limits us to hurt physically, to bleed, to ultimately just depart this body, to get sick and to have ego, is because we don't have the infinite whole source. Like the full light is not there. We are just there's a vessel, there's an invisible umbilical cord, I call it, made out of light
Mm-hmm.
that we feed off. And the same thing we have, which is the body that's connecting us to the ground, to the physical, to the ego. So all of a sudden, I'm like, a part of my soul, the part that was supposed to do it, what I'm doing now, a long time ago, since my childhood, the part that rebelled, instead of completely passing and me coming back again as a baby and needing to learn how to deal with the ego as a child and learn the right from wrong and climb all the way up. I didn't need to do that. I just needed to continue from where I stopped. When we stop the movie nowadays with all the technology and VCR and recording and DVR, what we do is that, okay, we're going to pause that movie. When we're ready to watch it again, we'll come back and most of them just replay from the moment you stop them. That's exactly what happened with the Walking Soul. Instead of inserting a whole brand new movie with a new character, it was just me, the higher self, the root of my soul, came down here and said, you know what? You've had your opportunity. You messed it up. Step out. I'm stepping in. And it's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what I mean. It's walking, it's to step in.
Okay.
And
So
and
interesting.
since then I've been helping over 350 people from all over the world. So that was and it's still happening every single day. And I'm so blessed because it's so simple, but yet so powerful and so special to be able to say, I'm saving souls.
Mm, that's wonderful. What is your understanding of why that took place? What was happening with the old part of you's life to where this other extension of you decided it needed to come on in and take over?
You know, I didn't live my soul purpose. You
Mm,
know, we all come here, and part of the thing is spiritual enlightenment. When people want to spiritually enlighten, when they want to ascend while they're in this body, they have to do it, and they have to connect to what their soul purpose is.
mm,
We don't come into this world, into this consciousness for a vacation.
mm,
You know, we don't come here for 70 years, 75, 80 years in average, when all we do is accumulate properties and materialistic things,
mhm,
show off about and brag about them, and then die.
mhm,
It's not, it doesn't make sense. You know, we have to understand that the whole creation, this whole universe was created for us. Everything around us does not possess ego, only us. The ego does not threat everything around us. If you look at the trees, okay, if you look at the tree is a living thing, the plant, and it gives us, it has the will to give over the need to receive. It has no ego. It gives
mm,
us free oxygen. It gives us shade. It gives us everything we need. Some of them give us fruit to eat. And what does it need from us? Nothing. Unless we take it indoors and we need to give it light and water on our own, nature does its course. Same for animals. They're all the ecosystem, how they call it. It's all an egoless system that is based on the need to give over the need to receive. Our goal in life is to do exactly that, to understand that we are a soul inside of a body. The body's job is to limit us, is to want us to receive, not to
mm,
give. We want food, we want drink, we want pleasure, we want money, we want things for us, us. Everything is egoistic. No matter how we look at it, as long as we live in this body, we have it. The key is to let the soul take the center stage and to lead and have the ego in the background.
mhm,
So what happened to me back then is that I was destined to be helping people. I'm like a spiritual soldier. I've lived many, many lifetimes ago as far as reincarnations. The amount of deja vus I have a day are multiples. So I know I've experienced this before in a different body, in a different reality, but I do remember my soul journey. However, I let the ego come in. I welcomed the ego. I wasn't even trying to fight the ego back then. I was materialistic. I lied. I hurt people. People hurt. I never did anything, God forbid, criminal or bad on a moral level. But I wasn't a good person. I wasn't a
mhm,
person that needed to that focuses on the positive and the spiritual, on the free love like I am now. I was judgmental. I was egoistic. So I think that because this soul was sent here for an assignment, it received the proper gifts and tools, spiritual tools from childhood to do it. And I turned on these tools. I turned away from them. I rebelled them. I rebelled my purpose. And I think that instead of me, because I thought that I'm going to die. Like when I was in that car, I'm like, I'm not coming out of it. I was a very practical human being. I'm not trying to brag, but back then I was very intelligent. So I knew that this speed minus the collision, I mean, I'm going to be gone. Or at least the reality, I mean, me as I know myself. And it didn't happen. Not only it didn't happen, I wasn't even touched.
mhm,
I wasn't even touched. And it doesn't make sense if you really look at the pictures of it. I mean, it doesn't make any sense not to even have a scratch. And I think that because I still have a major purpose, I received not a second chance, but I would say reinforcement. It's like somebody gave me a bunch of coins and said, take these coins and hand them out in this world. And instead, I took these coins and bought myself a lot of presents.
mhm,
So instead of taking everything away and getting me out of the game, right? I was given another sack of coins to be like, you know what? Now you're getting more coins, but please use them wisely this time. You know what can happen. So this is the only explanation I give to that. It's the soul journey, it's the synchronicities, and it's me being here as a spiritual traffic signs to other souls that might lose the way, that might, I have a lot of people who mourn, who bury their children. And this is such a terrible pain to bear. And they don't even know who to talk to. Even psychiatrists, psychologists, they'll talk to them based on what they know. And from the
Mhm.
academia world, I speak to their souls.
Mhm.
I convince them beyond any shadow of a doubt that there is no death. It's only a transitional phase to a true state of consciousness. Just like a butterfly, never look down at the cocoon it flies out of. It just flies away. It
Mhm.
leaves that body. So we need to know, we have to conclude one thing and one thing only. We need to know that we are a soul that happens to have a body and not a body that maybe or maybe not has a soul. Once we truly convinced we live a soul that has a body experience, and not the other way around. And everything will manifest itself to us. So, as a walking soul, it's not any more special soul than anybody else. It doesn't have higher power. It only possesses knowledge from the afterlife, knowledge from other worlds, knowledge that this is a temporary place. And those who are meant to listen to me and those who are meant to encounter, I do encounter.
That's beautiful. So, since we're already kind of on this topic, a question that I love to ask my guests is their understanding of why we come here to planet Earth. So, what is your belief on that?
If I sums it all up, we have to understand one thing that we have that limits us in this physical body, in this egoistic environment, is that ultimate secret of not understanding, but what is the purpose? Why are we born? In the world of souls, they're saying that some souls are really not happy to descend into this earth and have this human bodily egoistic experience. It's not good for the soul. The soul is not meant to hurt. The
Mhm.
soul is not meant to hate. The soul is not meant to ever be jealous or anything negative. That's why we feel bad when things like that consume us, when things like that are around us. That's what we feel bad and sad deep inside in our core, even if we pretend we don't, when we see injustice. That's why, however, we feel very, very happy and enlightened to have some beautiful spiritual moments and happy moments, moments that give us goosebumps, moments that no money can buy, no producer can produce, moments in our personal lives that are priceless because they're spiritual. And we come into this world to prove ourselves and our higher source and our higher selves that we can do it. It's
Mhm.
like soldiers, special forces people that go into boot camp, to basic training. Why are they going there? Why are they going to suffer the way they suffer and be pushed to the absolute limit? Because so they can prove they can. So when the moment of truth comes, they have what it takes despite the challenges. We here on a quest to show that we are a soul, even though we are trapped in these millions layers of ego. This is the purpose. The purpose is higher than us. These are things that we can only understand when we either cross over or when we pass. We can get a grip of why. These are kind of philosophical questions that you need to know what's coming after and what happened before. So I tell people, know who you are, know that you are a soul, know where you came from, these other dimensions, and know
Mhm.
where you're heading. And I'll give you, to sum up your question, I'll give you a good analogy. When a baby comes into this world, I don't know if you're a mother or not,
Mm.
but when a
Yeah.
baby,
Mhm.
so as a mother, I'm going to tell you that you have, and I don't know if you've ever heard it, an active participations in creating of life. Not the father contributes what they contribute to the physical body, but I'm talking about the soul.
Mhm.
Only in their mother body, in their birth canal, in the womb, you create a spiritual portal. And the moment that baby is going through all these stress and contractions and birth canal, and it's a stressful, a delivery, a child delivery is it's considered a medical emergency.
Mhm.
Anything can happen. So it's a stressful moment of pain, and we go into this transformation, and then a baby is born, rebirth. Everybody's happy. The first breath the baby takes indicates that they're okay, they're well. But what else indicates that the baby is okay? What do people always wait for when a baby is born?
When they cry.
When they cry, exactly.
Mhm.
When a baby cried, that's the indication. This is when the human soul, not a small fragment of the soul that kept him or her alive and well in your body, because if you think about it, you are in charge of that baby. Your body feeds it oxygen, your body feeds it nutrients, everything. Your soul even protects that living body. But when the baby is born, this is when the soul enters. This is why when a baby is born, nobody says it's a 9 month, 1 day old baby. No, it's a 1 day old baby. The baby cries, right? It's because the soul knows where it came to. What everybody else doing around that baby? Happy,
Mhm.
celebrating, congratulations, tears of joy. A baby is born. When a person ends their um, journey in life, when a person passes, everybody around that person is crying,
Mhm.
is sad, and that person is in a peace. The soul is finally happy to depart. We are not, and when people ask me about heaven and hell and this consciousness, I say, we are, if there is such thing, level of consciousness where we feel miserable, suffering, tortured, it's here. It's
Mhm.
here in the spiritual equivalent in this world, in the place that I visited when I passed. But the soul cannot contain nor can feel anything negative. We
Mhm.
come into this world to be dressed in a human vessel. We have the spark. Starting age 2 or 3, the ego starts to take over. What does a toddler do every time you take a toy from a toddler? They
Broke it.
scream, they stomp, it's mine, that's worth it. And they don't do it because they don't want to share. They do it because it's the first time the ego takes over. You can
Mhm.
even hold your own toy candy, and that toddler is going to come to you and snatch it off your hand. And if not, they'll start crying. It's mine, mine, mine. They want that physical pleasure. They want
Mhm.
that physical. They enjoy. Their soul is already getting used to this physical clothing called the body, and it gets worse and worse as we grow older. We want this. We want this brand new car, and I want to go to college. So I can have money. So we don't think much about the soul. It's in the background. But that's the mistake. We came into this world to have the body in the background. The soul needs to continue living as a soul, and this is how we pass that test. So when we cross over, we collect with us in this spiritual backpack all the good deeds, all the good things we've done for people, all the light that we share with the world. This does nothing but gives us more and more bliss in the afterlife, because even there, just like elevators, there are levels, there are higher and higher worlds. We can never stop growing. We are an infinite light that can always grow and bright and shine brighter and brighter and brighter. So the purpose in this world is to correct ourselves and correct the collective, correct the
Mhm.
creation. Everything is given to us. Everything is there in front of us to know that we are a soul. But unfortunately, a lot of us are still not convinced, and they go after the ego.
Mhm.
So I hope I was able to answer that, but this
You
is how
did,
I
and
see
much
it, of
more.
course.
Thank you for that analogy. I never really thought of it like that. But talking about the ego, I'm sure many of us can agree that this construct that we live in, this world, is designed to feed the ego and disconnect us from our true essence. And that is a part of the journey, is that remembrance. But I think many of us can also agree that we are living in wonderful times, what I perceive as the Great Awakening. And I've
Oh, yeah.
seen some of your Facebook posts kind of alluding to significant events that are occurring. So, what is your understanding of what's happening on the planet right now? Where are we headed towards?
You know, when I talk about these subjects, I really try my best to not like scare people. But if people are to be scared of big things or changes, things that are coming, then the ego is still completely controlling them, because
Sure.
one of the ego's major thing is fear. One of the ego's major tools is fear. Once we have fear, we completely disconnect from our source. It's like you unplug the soul. A lot of people don't know that during fear, a lot of bad things can manifest themselves to us because we really unplug ourselves. So we
Mhm.
shouldn't have any fear. However, and it's connected to your previous question, You know, even that game, that Ferris wheel, I call it, called life. And one day we're down, one day we're up. And then we just, you know, some of us getting off the ride, some of us continue to more and more ride because we keep buying tickets, but it's reincarnations of the same soul in different bodies, just living the same reality. At one point, this will also stop, just like it began. And we are now living in a generation where the ego is no longer going to quote unquote attack each and every one of us personally and individually, but there's also a collective attack from the ego, which is something that a lot of people are not even aware of. It's not how the ego will collectively attack us. It's not going to manifest itself in this, how I see it sometimes, it's a black shadow. It's something that it's like a black cloud. It can't. It will temper with our free will if we see spiritual miracles in front of us. We will all, from the fear of that, we will just be all spiritual. So it doesn't happen, but it does manifest itself in world major events that are the combination of wars, natural disasters, a lot of diversity, a lot of hate, a lot of things. It's almost like the ego has formed an army and there is an awakening for it. And why is the awakening, Christine? The awakening is because what we are about to experience in our generation, in our lifetime, in this world will be so physically, and I'm saying physically on purpose, catastrophically, that all the only quote unquote weapons we will have to deal with that will be spiritual. Only those of us with a higher level of consciousness, those with the spiritual knowledge, the fearless one, will be able to take us further, because for the first time ever, we will have the physical consciousness and the spiritual consciousness collide, merge, manifesting itself. It's something amazing. And that's why everybody is awakening, because you want to wake up to something like that. And even if you wake up on your own, there's awakening that's been happening on their own, and people's life are being completely being weirded out, and they're things are happening to them that it's just like happened to me 7 years ago when I started saying, hey, this is too weird to be coincidence. This is happening for me. These are puzzle pieces. These are hurdles that I have to overcome. And now collectively, we are all going to be facing a collective spiritual awakening. Some of us doing it on our own. Some of us will do it because they'll have no choice. And some of them will do it because they'll witness it with their bare eyes.
It's exciting times in my eyes, but I think you mentioned, that shift from thinking life is happening to you rather than for you. When you make that transition, then I think everything changes. It's a lot easier
Exactly.
to get out of fear because you understand there's a bigger picture at play.
I'm going to give you a quote because I always make up quotes and stuff. And then when I get into this trance, I make up those quotes and paragraphs, and then I tell my wife to put it on writing. That's how I do my post. Life is on your side. You know what I'm saying? Even the troubles in your life are on your side. Once you see everything, because we tend to always see that life is either against us or for us, or either we're lucky, we're unlucky. There is no such thing as unlucky. Life is even more on your side when you're being tried, because I haven't heard of one person who survived something difficult and hasn't leveled up because of that. And what's happening to us now with the awakening is something that I've been seeing in visions over and over and over. And, we shouldn't have any fear. What's the worst that can happen to us? We go back to be souls. We go back to be souls. We just stripped over this body. So we have to live our life with this concept of I'm a soul. A soul cannot be touched. A soul cannot be hurt. A soul can never be manipulated. A soul can never end. Know it as you live in this physical body, and you will open up a portal to spiritual miracles that will happen in your life. People don't realize they believe in the prayer. They believe in the power of prayer, but they don't believe in its timing. It's only doing 50% of the job. We have to not believe, we have to know. We don't believe we're souls, we know we're souls. Stick to good, I tell people. Surround yourself with good. And I'm seeing that what's coming up is exciting.
Mhm.
I'm not seeing it as something to be afraid of, you know? We shouldn't have any fear. So, you know, this is, like I said, even when life is bad, life is still on your side. And when we see things like that, it's manifest. We have the power to manifest with our thinking, with our mind. If we know that something is not bad, we take all the bad away from it. Because there's no such thing as bad. It's just the absence of good. Just like there's no such thing as cold by itself. It's the absence of heat.
Mhm.
Same thing. So when we see the world like that, we have this invisible shield around us from anything negative, yep, in the contrary, we just attract nothing but positive our way.
Mhm. Beautiful.
I live a complete spiritual life.
And speaking of living that spiritual life, tell us about some of the gifts that you have developed over since this whole experience happened.
Well, I must correct you. I've never developed anything. I was always and sometimes even against my will at the time, like inherited these abilities
Okay.
from psychic abilities and levels that I don't even see people as human beings anymore in their human forms. I see them as light. I see
Mhm.
them as souls. So it's very, you know, it's an advantage in a way because you know who you want to associate yourself with,
Mhm.
but at the same time, you know who needs help, you know who needs support. You know, like I really see people as light forms, and it's amazing. It's almost like I just got the spiritual goggles.
Mm.
My intuition is, you know, over, but I really stopped paying attention to that, and I never really like flash my abilities and stuff when I talk to people. I only use them, and one of the most amazing is the knowledge, because my whole book is consists of these 111 chapters, aside from the first two, which is the story of my accident, so people know why I'm talking the way I'm talking, but the rest is nothing but insights and like instructional manual for life, for
Mhm.
spirituality, how to give a spiritual explanation to anything that happens to us. So
Mhm.
people can open it in any chapter and connect. And the knowledge, and I call it divine knowledge because it's thinking outside the physical box. And I inherited it, and I never opened a book in my life about these things. I never really investigated it. The only time I looked into it was when I Googled what is a walking soul, but these things just happen. It's like it's almost like a Hulk, you know, like it's inside of you. And when I speak spirituality with people, when I connect to their soul, it comes out. Because
Mhm.
most of my sessions, if not all of them, I remember the people's story to the word, to the letter. I don't remember a thing I told them in the conversation. I get
Mhm.
into this trance, and it just speaks from inside of me. So the talent is the ability is just to connect to my soul whenever I want. I meditate as I'm awake. I meditate as I'm working. I meditate as I'm going shopping. I'm constantly meditating. I'm constantly into that state. I can make that switch very easy. And it's knowledge. Once you, they say knowledge is power, but knowledge that you are a soul, that having a body experience is the most powerful. So it's very easy and it's accessible to everybody. So,
Beautiful.
and the
So,
dreams, the visions.
yeah. So you started talking a little bit about your book. So let's go ahead and talk about that now. I think it just officially launched, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I think it launched. I'm not sure. So my wife is the only part that I had in my book besides writing it is, well, that's it. It's pretty much writing it, and there's my wife behind the scene is doing all that stuff. And I think it was 2 weeks ago. It was launched 2 weeks ago, and to me, it's like completely closing a circle and be able to reach to a lot of people who don't necessarily consume social media and watch YouTube videos of NDs and stuff. And especially with that book, The Soul Guide, is, I want to say it's for everyone, but it's not for everyone. It's for really those who are going to be drawn to it. It
Mhm.
doesn't say much in the cover, like it doesn't say, oh, the story of, or the NDE story this.
Mhm.
It just said The Soul Guide, and I think that um, there are certain souls that really are about to encounter this book, and it's going to be connecting us. So yeah, this is just another avenue of how I get some of the secrets of creation that were revealed to me. I never asked for them. At times, especially there's a chapter there how to connect with Archangel Michael. based on how he connected with me. But I never even seek to him to begin with. But knowing how amazing it was, I was like, I have to write about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all consists of everything that I, in the past 7 months, were posting on my Facebook, all these insights that I had via trance. I took them, elaborated on them, and I knew there were secrets from creation because they came to me when I least expected them. And I took it and elaborated on that and wrote on it. And the result is good. It's blessed. So I'm happy.
That's wonderful. Well, I have your book on order, so I can't wait to read it. Do you offer your services?
Yes, the services, the session as I call them are, you know, I must say, unlike a lot of other services, it's not a paid service. It's not like it's not a profession. It's not a business. Me and my wife are very busy with our life doing charity. A lot of giving, hospitals, kids, poor people. Because it's a matter. I can speak on something to inspire others, and I can keep some secrets for the privacy of the people receiving. But we decided to live our life like that. It's with no ego. It's the need to give over the need to receive. So when I do sessions, I started with helping people from all around the world. Like I said, over 350 people. I remember talking to people in remote villages in Africa when the power went on and off
Wow.
every 2 minutes while I'm trying to conduct a Zoom meeting. People that lost their loved ones and really needed hope and closure, stuff that no other service could give them. So I don't do psychic readings, even though in the beginning I started with that and it was documented, well documented, but I stopped because it's not part of my soul journey. So I do reading to people's soul. I help them connect to themselves.
Mhm.
I help them grow in spirit, in light. And I do a donation base. I tell people, hey, I mean, there's no fee. You want to donate, you donate. Donate like a penny or donate whatever you want. And we take this donation and we roll it over to other donations.
Mhm.
So this is kind of what I do. And again, everybody I speak to are people who I knew ahead of time that I'm supposed to speak to them.
Mhm.
Every single soul that writes me, that wants to speak to me, some of them was like, I was just drawn to you. I don't even know why. I don't know why what I want to talk about, but I was drawn to you. And
Mhm.
then we ended up talking and I ended up knowing all their life story. So yeah, there is a psychic medium element in it, but it's not like, okay, I'm telling you, your late, I don't know, grandma says that you like blue colors. Like that's not the type of reading I do. I
Sure.
more try to connect and solve problems. I'm like an electrician, go into people's inner light and change the light bulb from dim to something very bright. And this is why I'm called the soul guy,
Love
bringing
it.
light to the soul, because this is exactly literally what I do.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your light. It sounds like you're doing such amazing work. I'm going to link all of your information below. And I would like for you to leave us with one uplifting message, anything at all you'd like to share.
I'll go back to the same message that I started with is, you know, the soul is such a powerful, beautiful force that we are so fortunate to be a part of. And again, I'm going to go back to the butterflies in the stomach. It's this sensation. Now imagine this sensation is constant and is powerful. And it can happen to us once we know that we are a soul that having a body experience. But the message is this: get rid of the ego, at least chip it off. Remove it from your eyes, at least, so you can see. And work on your need to give over the need to receive. When you give something, and it doesn't have to be a materialistic thing, but when you give something, either your time, your attention, your love, or whatever, a gift, give from a place where you feel that something was taken from you. That's the true definition of sharing, soul sharing. And once you do that, once you start living like a soul, not just existing like a soul and knowing you have a soul, spiritual miracles will happen to you, will occur in your life, and your prayers will be answered. This is my
Thank you so
message.
much. Thank you for this conversation. Thank you for doing what you do, for sharing your message, your light. And I
Thank
wish
you.
you all the best, truly.
It's been a pleasure and honor to be here with you, Christine. Thank you so much. And I
Thank
wish you
you.
nothing but love and light.
Thank you. You too, Mike.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.